The story began with a small mistake, the kind that could have been just a footnote in a long list of scientific experiments. A research team was testing a new deep space drive called the quantum slip engine. It was supposed to push human exploration a little further beyond the edge of Pluto. Everyone on the mission knew it was risky, but that was what made it exciting. They wanted to make history. For years, Earth had dreamed of reaching the far unknown, of finally stepping into the endless dark between the stars. Inside the ship named Odyssey Dawn, there were scientists, engineers, and a small crew of space pilots. They had worked together for months preparing for this moment. When the countdown began, every heart on that ship beat a little faster. The commander gave a calm nod. The engines glowed bright blue, and space seemed to bend around them like ripples in water. In one moment, the stars stretched into lines. In the next, everything went black. At first, everyone thought it worked perfectly. The systems looked stable, the readings normal. Then one of the navigation officers frowned. The stars outside didn't match the database. There was no familiar constellation. Not one planet in view. The universe outside was full of strange lights, moving objects, and a soft glow that looked like distant metal. The communication deck tried sending a message back to Earth, but there was no response. The signal didn't even echo back. It was as if space itself had swallowed their voice. They were lost, not just in distance, but in reality. They checked the coordinates again over and over until one scientist whispered the impossible truth. They were nowhere near the solar system. They had jumped far, too far beyond anything mapped by humans. The ship had traveled to a region that didn't even exist in Earth's databases. Then came the first real shock. Outside the ship's window floated a massive structure, stretching endlessly into the distance. It looked like a ring, wide as a continent, rotating slowly and glowing with thousands of symbols no one had ever seen before. It wasn't a planet or a moon. It was built, artificial, alive with activity. Someone gasped softly and said what everyone was thinking. "We're not alone." Cameras zoomed in. Tiny dots of light moved along the surface of the structure. They weren't natural. They were ships. Countless ships. Within minutes, scanners detected signals coming from those vessels. The crew realized they had entered the territory of something powerful, something far beyond human technology. The air in the control room grew heavier. The commander ordered everyone to stay calm and prepare for contact. They had always dreamed of discovering life beyond Earth, but no one had expected it to happen like this, by mistake, uninvited, lost in someone else's home. Suddenly, a strange humming sound filled the air. The ship's systems flickered. A message was coming through, filled with symbols and a deep rhythmic tone. The computer tried to translate, but the language was too advanced. Static filled the room until finally a voice broke through, rough and robotic. "You have entered Imperial space. Identify yourselves or be destroyed." Everyone froze. The translation wasn't perfect, but the meaning was clear. This was no friendly greeting. The Odyssey Dawn had wandered straight into a galactic empire's backyard. The commander tried to respond. "We come in peace. We are explorers from Earth." The ship transmitted the message across every channel it could find. A long silence followed. Then the alien voice returned, colder this time. "Surrender your vessel. You are trespassing in restricted space." On Earth, hours later, the signal from Odyssey Dawn finally reached the communication stations. At first, no one believed it. The transmission was broken and filled with static, but parts were clear enough to send shockwaves through every major city. The world had waited centuries for first contact, and now it was happening live through frightened voices echoing across the stars. Governments immediately held emergency meetings. Scientists argued over how to respond. Was this the beginning of an interstellar war, or a misunderstanding that could be solved with words? News channels across the planet lit up with theories and panic. The phrase "imperial territory" spread like wildfire. People looked up at the night sky, suddenly feeling smaller than ever before. Back aboard Odyssey Dawn, things were getting tense. The alien ships had surrounded them completely. Enormous vessels shaped like floating fortresses glowed with lines of silver and gold. Some were so large that the entire human ship could have fit inside their hangars. Every surface shimmered like a living organism, moving and breathing in rhythm. One engineer whispered, "They're beautiful," though the beauty came with terror. The aliens didn't attack yet, but their presence alone was overwhelming. Inside the ship, the crew debated what to do next. Some said they should surrender. Others wanted to keep talking, to show they meant no harm. One scientist quietly suggested shutting down their engines, hoping the aliens would see it as a sign of peace. Finally, the commander made the call. They would not surrender, not yet. They would hold their position and wait for further contact. Hours passed. Then, one of the alien ships released a beam of light that touched the hull of Odyssey Dawn. The computers screamed with alarms. The light wasn't an attack, it was a scan studying every inch of human technology. The aliens were curious, almost amused. Finally, another message came through. This time the tone was less hostile, almost entertained. "Humans," the translator whispered, struggling with the alien syntax. "You are not a threat, you are lost children." The words stung, but they carried a strange warmth, as if the Empire found humans interesting, even funny. The crew exchanged nervous glances. The aliens didn't destroy them. They were studying them, laughing perhaps at their small ship and primitive systems. One of the crew members chuckled under their breath and said, "At least they didn't call us insects." That small laugh broke the tension for a moment. Even in fear, humans found humor. Over the next few hours, more alien signals arrived, complex and full of information that the computers could barely interpret. Images of star maps appeared on their screens, showing thousands of systems connected under one symbol, a vast empire that stretched farther than human imagination. One scientist whispered in disbelief, "They control everything." Then came a final message, "Leave this space. Do not return. Next intrusion will mean annihilation." The commander replied respectfully, promising to comply. The aliens watched as Odyssey Dawn prepared to activate its engines. Before jumping back into the unknown, the crew sent one last broadcast to Earth, a simple message that would change history forever. "We're not alone." They found us first, then they engaged the drive. The ship vanished in a flash of light. Back on Earth, the signal faded. Weeks passed before any response came. Governments denied public access to the recordings, claiming they were under review. People demanded answers, and rumors spread everywhere. Some said the ship was destroyed. Others claimed the crew had been taken. Then out of nowhere, the Odyssey Dawn reappeared near the edge of the moon's orbit. The ship was heavily damaged but intact. The crew had returned, shaken, exhausted, but alive. Their eyes told the story before their mouths did. Reporters called them heroes. Scientists called them survivors. The world wanted to know what they had seen and what the Empire was. The commander simply said, "They're far ahead of us, but they're not gods. They have power, yes, but we have something they don't understand." When someone asked what that was, the commander smiled faintly. "We laugh. Even when we're scared." That line became famous. It was replayed across every network, printed on every headline. Humanity had met something beyond comprehension, yet their first instinct was not to kneel. It was to stand, smile, and face the unknown with courage. In the quiet days that followed, while engineers examined the ship and politicians debated what to do next, one truth remained clear. Humanity had crossed a border they were never meant to find. They had stumbled into Empire territory by mistake, and though they barely survived, their discovery changed everything. The people of Earth realized that they were no longer just explorers of their own solar system. They were part of a much larger story, one that had existed long before humans took their first steps on the moon. The stars above were no longer just lights in the sky. They were homes, cities, civilizations watching from afar. For now, the Empire had warned them to stay away. But everyone knew curiosity would return. Humans had a strange habit of walking into the impossible and laughing their way through it. What started as an accident had opened the door to something far greater. And deep down, everyone understood. The story of humankind among the stars had just begun. After the Odyssey Dawn returned, Earth was no longer the same. The news of the alien empire spread like wildfire, filling every home, every street corner, every digital screen. People wanted to believe that humanity had made friends among the stars, but the truth was less comforting. The Empire's message had been clear. Humans were trespassers. They were warned to stay away or face destruction. Still, curiosity burned brighter than fear. Humanity had always been stubborn like that. Governments called emergency meetings one after another behind closed doors. Scientists tried to decode every signal, every bit of data the Odyssey Dawn had brought back. The recordings of those alien ships, their scale, their beauty, their sheer power, were unlike anything the world had seen. They made human cities look like toys. Yet there was something else in those recordings too, an arrogance in the alien voices. A tone that said, "You are beneath us." That tone did something strange to people. It didn't make them afraid, it made them proud. For the first time, the entire planet felt like one nation. Humanity had been insulted, dismissed as lost children, and that phrase became a spark that lit a fire in the human heart. The commander of the Odyssey Dawn, still recovering from the long mission, was called to speak before a world council. The hall was filled with leaders, scientists, and journalists from every corner of the globe. The commander stood quietly before them, still wearing the faded uniform from the mission. When asked what they thought of the Empire, the commander replied softly, "They're powerful, yes, but they think we're too small to matter. That's their mistake." Those words echoed across the world. It wasn't anger, it was challenge. Humanity had never been known to give up when told to stop. The council decided to form a new program, a united initiative that would bring together every nation's best minds and resources. It was called the Vanguard Program, meant to protect Earth and prepare for the next encounter. Work began in secret. The Odyssey Dawn had brought back fragments of alien material, small shards that glowed faintly under human lights. Scientists discovered that these pieces carried energy far beyond any known source. Theories spread that if humans could understand this technology, they might one day match the Empire's strength. Months passed. The people on Earth didn't forget. Movies, songs, and murals began to appear celebrating the crew of the Odyssey Dawn. They were called the Accidental Heroes. School children learned their story. Some even began to dream of becoming explorers, not soldiers. But while people celebrated, the governments were worried. Every scan of the night sky was more tense now. Every unknown signal felt like a warning. Then one morning it happened. Observatories across the world detected something huge entering the solar system. It wasn't an asteroid or a comet. It was moving too precisely, too straight. A ship, not human. The world went silent. The data showed it was approaching fast, slowing only as it reached the orbit of Jupiter. Cameras from deep space probes captured the image first, an enormous craft shining like a floating fortress. It was bigger than any city on Earth, covered in gold and silver lines that pulsed like veins of light. The Empire had arrived. No one knew whether it was a peaceful visit or a threat. People gathered in public squares watching the live feeds on giant screens. Children clung to their parents. Old veterans looked up at the sky with steady eyes. The government sent signals, messages of peace, even apologies, but no answer came. Hours later, a strange energy wave passed through every satellite. Screens flickered. Then a voice spoke, not in any human language, but perfectly translated through every device. It was the same cold, deep tone the Odyssey Dawn had heard. "Humans of Earth, you were warned not to enter Imperial space. We will now remind you of your place." The voice faded. Panic spread across the planet. Some people ran for shelters. Others simply stood still, staring at the sky, waiting for what would come next. The massive ship began to move toward Earth. Every defense system went active, though everyone knew they were useless against such technology. Then, before the Empire could reach orbit, the Vanguard program acted. A small fleet of human ships, experimental and fragile, rose from Earth's surface. They were equipped with weapons designed using the alien fragments, energy cannons that had never been tested in real combat. The pilots knew the odds. They were going up against something they didn't understand, but they had no other choice. Inside one of those ships, a young pilot whispered to their teammate, "If they're going to teach us our place, we might as well show them we can stand." The words were shaky but strong. As the Empire's ship reached the moon's orbit, the human fleet fired. The beams cut across the darkness, hitting the alien armor and exploding in sparks of blue light. The Empire's ship didn't fall, but it slowed. It responded with a single pulse of energy that sent half the human ship spinning out of control. Still, they kept fighting. Every time they fell, someone else took their place. Back on Earth, people watched the live feed, holding their breath. The sight of human ships standing up to something so vast filled them with awe. It wasn't about winning anymore, it was about courage. The world saw what humanity could do when it refused to bow. The Empire, watching from their grand vessel, hesitated. Their mission had been simple, to show dominance. But now they saw something else: defiance, bravery, unity. No other young species had ever dared to fight them. Most civilizations simply surrendered. Humans, however, fought with everything they had. One of the alien commanders reportedly said, "They laugh while facing death." The translator on Earth later confirmed that word, laugh. The aliens had seen recordings of human pilots joking during battle, smiling even when their ships were breaking apart. They didn't understand it. They couldn't. The battle lasted only a few hours, but its impact was far greater than any victory. When the alien ship finally withdrew, damaged but not destroyed, a cheer erupted across the planet. People poured into the streets. It didn't matter that the cost had been high. Humanity had faced something impossible and survived. That was enough. The World Council met again, this time not in fear but in pride. The commander of the Odyssey Dawn was there too, watching silently as new plans were made. They knew the Empire would return stronger next time, but they also knew that humans would be ready. Scientists worked day and night analyzing the data from the battle. Engineers studied the energy patterns from the alien weapons, trying to find weaknesses. Ordinary people volunteered for new training programs. Artists, writers, and teachers began to speak of a new age of unity. For the first time in history, there were no borders in human dreams. Everyone wanted to protect Earth, not for politics or power, but for each other. Months later, a faint signal arrived from deep space. It wasn't a threat this time. It was a transmission from the Empire. It said only one thing: "You are more dangerous than we thought." The message was meant as a warning, but to humans, it felt like respect. They had forced the Empire to notice them not as children, but as equals, small perhaps, but fearless. People began to laugh again, not out of mockery, but relief. They had seen what waited out there among the stars, and still, they were ready to go on exploring. The Odyssey Dawn was repaired and prepared for another mission. This time it wouldn't be an accident. Humanity would return to the stars by choice. The commander stood before the new crew and said, "We stumbled once. Now we walk with purpose." As the engines roared to life, the world watched again, hearts beating with pride and fear. Humanity had met the Empire, faced its wrath, and refused to kneel. They were no longer just explorers. They were survivors, dreamers, and builders of their own destiny. The Empire might have had power, but humans had something stronger: the will to laugh in the face of the impossible. And that laughter, echoing softly across the stars, was the sound of triumph beginning to rise. After the great encounter with the Empire's warship, Earth was alive with both pride and fear. People couldn't stop talking about it. Every television, every radio, every phone played the same message: we survived. For the first time, humans had faced an enemy from beyond the stars and lived to tell the tale. But deep down, everyone knew this was not the end. The Empire would not forget. The World Council met again, this time under tighter security and greater tension. Scientists from every country shared their findings from the battle. They had studied the energy trails left behind by the alien weapons and discovered something strange. The Empire's technology was advanced, yes, but not perfect. Their power depended on certain energy frequencies that could be disrupted. The idea was risky, but it gave hope. Maybe humans could defend themselves better next time. The Vanguard program grew larger than anyone could have imagined. Every nation contributed its best minds. Factories that once built airplanes now built small starships. Engineers worked day and night testing shields, weapons, and faster engines. It wasn't about war anymore. It was about survival. In the middle of all this preparation, something unexpected happened. The crew of the Odyssey Dawn, who had once been treated as heroes, started noticing strange messages appearing in their systems. They were faint transmissions, written in symbols that looked similar to the Empire's language. At first, they thought it was interference from space debris, but when scientists decoded it, the message shocked everyone. It said, "We are not all your enemies." The words came from a hidden source within the Empire's own network. Whoever sent them seemed to be risking everything. More messages followed over the next few days, maps, coordinates, and warnings. One said, "The Empire is planning a full-scale strike. They want to erase your kind before others see your strength." The Council couldn't decide whether to trust it. Some said it was a trick. Others believed it was a warning from someone inside the Empire who didn't agree with their rulers. In the end, the decision was made. Prepare for war, but keep searching for truth. Months passed quietly. Earth built new ships using both human engineering and bits of alien technology that had been recovered from the last battle. The scientists had learned to use the Empire's materials to create something new, a weapon called the quantum reflector. It could capture and redirect energy beams. The idea sounded impossible, but tests showed it worked. Humans were learning fast. Then, one quiet evening, the warning came true. An alarm rang across every space monitoring station. Massive objects had entered the edge of the solar system. Dozens of them. The Empire was returning, and this time they were not alone. The fleet was large enough to block the light of the stars. People looked up at the night sky and saw strange glows moving like fireflies through space. Fear spread quickly, but so did determination. Every military base went into motion. Every scientist, technician, and pilot took their positions. This time Earth was ready. The commander of the vanguard stood before thousands of soldiers and engineers and said, "We are not fighting for power. We are fighting for our right to exist." The world fell silent as the first wave of alien ships reached Mars. From there, they began moving toward Earth. Their weapons glowed like burning suns. But before they could strike, the new human fleet launched into space. It was a sight no one would ever forget. Hundreds of ships rose from Earth's surface, cutting through the clouds, each carrying people who knew they might never return. Yet none of them hesitated. From space, Earth looked small but bright. A glowing blue world full of courage. The first contact happened near the orbit of the Moon. The Empire's lead vessel sent a signal, repeating the same old command: surrender or perish. This time, humanity didn't reply with words, they replied with action. The human fleet fired together, beams of light crossing the darkness like arrows. The alien ships responded instantly, firing energy bolts that tore through space. The shock waves lit up the stars. Entire screens of static filled Earth's control centers. Families at home could only see flashes of light through broadcast feeds. The battle had begun. At first, the Empire's power seemed unstoppable. Their weapons tore apart several human ships within minutes. But then the new technology came into play. A human ship called Horizon activated the quantum reflector for the first time. When the Empire's beam hit, it bent, twisted, and shot back at the enemy. The alien vessel exploded in a burst of blue fire. A cheer went up across Earth's communication networks. Humanity had struck a real blow. Still, the battle was far from over. The Empire's fleet was enormous, and humans were outnumbered. Yet something strange began to happen. The aliens started to struggle. Their massive ships were powerful but slow. Human ships were smaller, faster, unpredictable. They moved like swarms of insects, impossible to target precisely. For every human ship that fell, another took its place using new tactics the aliens had never seen. The Empire's commanders grew frustrated. They had expected fear and surrender. Instead, they saw determination. They saw creativity. Human pilots used asteroids as shields, redirected missiles using magnetized charges, even rammed into enemy ships when out of ammunition. Every act of courage was broadcast back to Earth, where people watched with tears in their eyes. Somewhere during the chaos, one alien ship sent another message, again in broken translation. "Why do you fight? You cannot win." A human pilot laughed into the radio before answering, "Because you told us we couldn't." That laugh was captured on every transmission and replayed endlessly. It wasn't mockery. It was human nature itself, the refusal to give up, even in the face of death. The battle raged for hours that felt like days. Finally, a pattern emerged. Human engineers noticed that the Empire's ships began to lose energy faster than expected. Their massive power systems couldn't handle the sustained battle. The aliens weren't built for long wars. They were built for quick domination. Using that knowledge, Earth's commanders changed tactics. They stopped trying to destroy the enemy outright and started targeting their power cores. One by one, the Empire's ships began to falter, their lights dimming, their shields breaking. Then came the moment that would later be called the turning spark. A massive alien cruiser fired its main cannon at Earth's defense line. The beam was larger than anything seen before, a line of pure energy heading straight for the planet. But just before it hit, 3 human ships combined their reflector shields, redirecting the beam back toward the alien ship that fired it. The energy looped, curved, and struck its source. The explosion lit up half the sky. When the light faded, the alien fleet was in chaos. Their leaders ordered retreat. They had underestimated humans once again. On Earth, the silence that followed felt endless. Then, one by one, communication screens came alive with messages from returning pilots. Cheers erupted across every city. People hugged strangers in the streets. They had done the impossible. They had fought the Empire twice and survived again. The cost was heavy, but victory was undeniable. Humanity had not only defended its world, it had forced the most powerful empire in the galaxy to back away. Days later, a new transmission came from deep space. It wasn't a threat this time. It said, "We recognize your strength. The Empire will reconsider its position." The words were short, but they meant everything. Humanity had earned respect. The commander of the Vanguard looked at the message and whispered quietly, "They thought we were children. Now they know we are something else." That night, across the planet, lights shone brighter than ever. People celebrated, not out of pride, but gratitude. They knew the battle wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of a new chapter. In the silence of space, the wrecks of both human and alien ships floated side by side, glowing faintly under the starlight. Somewhere out there, the Empire was watching, perhaps even rethinking what it meant to be powerful. And on Earth, as the sunrise touched the oceans, people finally slept knowing one truth that would echo for generations. Humans might stumble, they might fall, but they never stop standing back up. Because in the vastness of the universe, laughter, courage, and unity had become humanity's greatest weapons. After the Empire's fleet turned away and the skies went quiet, Earth entered a strange period of calm. The victory had brought joy, but also a deep sense of uncertainty. People had cheered, cried, and celebrated in the streets, but once the excitement faded, the questions began. Would the Empire return? Would they come with peace this time, or with something far worse? Every nation stayed alert. Satellites scanned the edges of the solar system day and night. Every flicker, every light in the darkness made scientists jump. Humanity had survived 2 encounters, but no one believed the story was finished. Still, something had changed. The fear that once ruled people's hearts had begun to turn into strength. In cities around the world, construction began on new facilities, massive hangars and laboratories that glowed at night like bright stars on the ground. The Vanguard program expanded faster than anyone imagined. Ordinary citizens joined too, offering their skills to the cause. Engineers, teachers, artists, farmers, everyone wanted to help. People weren't fighting just for survival anymore. They were fighting for the future. The world started sharing knowledge like never before. Borders that once divided nations began to fade. Languages, flags, and politics didn't matter as much now. Humanity had a common identity. They were Earthlings, and they had proven that even the strongest empire couldn't crush their spirit. Meanwhile, in space, something beautiful was taking shape. The first orbital station built entirely with united effort was almost complete. It was named Unity Arc. From a distance, it looked like a silver ring circling the Earth. It was more than a station. It was a symbol. A promise that humanity would never again face the universe divided. The engineers of the Ark were working with the recovered alien fragments, trying to decode their energy patterns. The quantum reflector used in the last battle had changed everything. Scientists now believed they could improve it, make it smaller, faster, and more stable. It was technology humans had barely understood a year ago, but they were learning at a speed that shocked even their own minds. While progress filled the Earth with pride, the Empire's silence grew heavier. Months passed without any new transmissions. Many believed the aliens were planning something. Then one night, a weak signal appeared on Earth's receivers. It wasn't from the Empire. It was from deep space, somewhere far beyond their borders. The voice was faint and broken, but the translation came through clearly. To the humans of Earth, we saw what you did. We saw you stand. The signal ended there, leaving scientists speechless. Whoever had sent it was not part of the Empire. That meant there were other civilizations out there watching. The thought both thrilled and terrified humanity. Soon after, strange whispers spread across the internet and news channels. Some people believed smaller empires or free colonies within the galaxy might try to contact Earth. Others feared that helping humans would make those groups targets of the main empire. Governments debated endlessly. Should they answer the message or stay silent to avoid drawing attention? In the end, Earth's leaders made a quiet decision. They would respond, not with words, but with presence. The Vanguard was ordered to prepare a deep space exploration ship that could travel beyond the solar system safely. It would carry no weapons, only scanners, translators, and a promise of peace. The ship was built faster than anyone thought possible. Every nation contributed materials and ideas. The ship was sleek, strong, and shining like a shard of starlight. On the day of its launch, people around the world gathered in parks, rooftops, and open fields to watch it rise. As it lifted off, a voice on the broadcast said, "We once stumbled into the unknown. This time we walk there by choice." The cheers that followed were deafening, but not everyone felt peace. Hidden among the stars, far beyond human reach, the Empire had indeed been watching. Inside their massive citadels, their leaders argued. Some said humans were dangerous and unpredictable. Others claimed they were a species worth respecting, even learning from. A few feared that if left unchecked, humans would become a serious threat in the future. Eventually, the decision was made. The Empire would not attack yet. They would observe. If humanity crossed their borders again, they would act. Back on Earth, life slowly began to return to normal. Children returned to schools. Farmers planted crops again. Musicians wrote songs about bravery, unity, and hope. Even movies began showing heroes with ships flying through the stars, carrying Earth's flag. Humanity had found its spirit again. Then came something no one expected. One of Earth's outer satellites picked up strange movements near the edge of the solar system. At first it seemed like small debris or comets. But when zoomed in, the shapes became clearer. Small ships, broken and damaged, drifting silently. They weren't human. They were alien escape vessels. Earth immediately sent rescue teams. When they reached the ships, they found life inside. Alien survivors, weak and terrified. They were not from the Empire, but from smaller worlds that had rebelled against it and lost. Their stories were heartbreaking. Their home planets had been destroyed, their people scattered. When brought to Earth, these aliens spoke of cruelty, of how the Empire ruled through fear. They told humans that their victory had spread like a rumor across the stars. Other civilizations now whispered that maybe the Empire wasn't invincible after all. Maybe, just maybe, there was hope. The arrival of those refugees changed everything. Humanity realized they were no longer alone in their struggle. There were others out there who wanted freedom too. The Council debated how to help them without provoking the Empire again. After long talks, they made a bold choice. Earth would offer sanctuary. That decision carried risk, but it also carried pride. When the first alien refugee stepped onto Earth's soil, the crowd that had gathered erupted in applause. For the first time, humans were not the newcomers of the universe, they were protectors. This act of kindness didn't go unnoticed. Weeks later, another signal came from the Empire. This one was colder than ice. You interfere with Imperial order, withdraw your protection, or face destruction. The message played across every communication channel. The world fell into silence. Some thought it was time to back down. Others said no. They remembered how they had laughed in the face of the Empire before, and they refused to surrender now. The World Council gathered again. The debate lasted all night, until the commander of the Vanguard finally stood and said, "We can't control what the Empire will do, but we can control who we are. If helping the helpless is a crime, then let them call us guilty." That sentence spread across the world. It was printed on posters, shouted in the streets, written on walls, and sung in songs. Humanity had found its heart again, stronger than before. The Empire didn't respond right away. Perhaps they were deciding what to do next. Perhaps they were afraid that if they attacked again, more worlds would rise against them. For the first time, the mighty rulers of the galaxy faced a new kind of threat, not weapons, but inspiration. Meanwhile, the new ship sent to explore the galaxy had gone far beyond Pluto. It traveled silently through dark space, carrying Earth's hope with it. The crew aboard reported seeing distant stars flickering in patterns that looked almost like signals. They didn't know if it was natural or intelligent, but it gave them comfort to think they weren't alone. As Earth watched and waited, something remarkable began happening. People stopped seeing themselves as citizens of countries. They started calling themselves humans of Earth. The feeling of unity that had been born in fear was now blooming in pride. Even though they knew danger was still out there, people smiled more, worked harder, and dreamed bigger. Children played pretending to be star pilots. Families planted trees in honor of those who fought in the battles. Scientists kept building new technologies that could one day help them reach the stars peacefully. Humanity had come a long way from the day the Odyssey Dawn accidentally stumbled into the Empire's territory. Back then, they were lost explorers. Now they were builders of destiny. The laughter that once echoed through fear had become a symbol of defiance, of life refusing to be silenced. Somewhere in the vast dark of space, the Empire still watched, uncertain and wary. But the humans didn't hide anymore. They were ready for whatever came next, because they had learned one unshakable truth: the universe didn't belong only to the strong. It belonged to those who dared to stand, to hope, and to laugh in the face of the impossible. And Earth, small and fragile though it was, had become the loudest voice in that endless, silent sky. The Empire's warning echoed across every screen on Earth, chilling and sharp like a storm rolling through a quiet city. People froze where they stood, workers in factories, students in classrooms, even pilots mid-flight. The words were simple but heavy. Withdraw your protection or face destruction. For a long moment, the world held its breath. Then, instead of panic, something else began to spread: resolve. Humanity had faced this threat before, and they were still standing. People remembered the last time the Empire had tried to break them, and how they had refused to fall. The fear was there, yes, but beneath it burned something stronger: pride. The World Council gathered once again in the great glass chamber overlooking the ocean. It was the same place where they had formed the Vanguard Alliance. Now they sat together under the same blue sky, but with far more courage than before. They had tasted fear, and they had conquered it once already. On the large central screen, images of the alien refugees were displayed, the ones Earth had rescued. Their faces were weary but filled with gratitude. They had no one else to turn to, no other place to call home. The question now was simple: would humanity abandon them to save itself, or stand beside them and risk another war? The room was silent for a while. Then an elderly scientist who had once worked on the quantum reflector stood up. His hands trembled slightly, but his voice was firm. "When we first reached the stars, we were lost," he said. "Now we know who we are. If we turn our backs on them, we lose that. We lose ourselves." Those words hit deep. Across the world, debates began, some in quiet corners, others in open streets. People gathered around public screens and discussed what should be done. Some feared another war would destroy everything they'd rebuilt. Others said that compassion was worth any price. News channels broadcast stories of the refugees, how they had lost their families, how their homes had been burned by the Empire's forces. These stories reached even the smallest towns, where farmers and shopkeepers began sending messages to the council. Don't let fear decide. Do what's right. Soon the decision was made. Earth would not surrender. They would protect the refugees no matter the cost. It wasn't about strength anymore, it was about honor. Preparation began immediately. The Vanguard fleet was placed on high alert. Thousands volunteered to join the defense teams. Engineers worked day and night to upgrade the shield networks and improve the quantum reflector. They even invited the refugees to share what they knew about the Empire's ships. For the first time, humans and aliens worked side by side, not as strangers but as allies. Life on Earth changed again. People learned alien languages, shared food, and exchanged stories about their worlds. Children laughed with alien kids, curious and unafraid. What had started as a desperate act of kindness had become a bridge between species. Humanity was no longer alone in the galaxy. Still deep down, everyone knew the calm wouldn't last. The Empire's silence was not peace, it was preparation. Weeks later, the first signs appeared. Sensors at the edge of the solar system detected massive energy signatures moving closer. The readings were unmistakable. Imperial ships. Dozens of them. Bigger and stronger than before. The news spread like wildfire. Cities dimmed their lights and people gathered around screens once more. The fleet that had once threatened them was returning. Only this time, humanity wasn't the same. In the Vanguard headquarters, the commanders stood before a holographic map showing Earth and the incoming enemy. "They'll reach us in 72 hours, one of the officers said quietly. The world held its breath again. Instead of panic, there was purpose. Factories switched to emergency production. Civilian ships were converted into supply carriers. Scientists focused all power into stabilizing the reflector network. Even farmers helped, donating power generators and materials. The world had never been this united. 3 days later, the Empire's fleet arrived. The night sky lit up with streaks of light as massive ships descended through the outer atmosphere. The scale of their power was overwhelming. Entire cities could fit inside those vessels. Yet, despite the fear, people stood on rooftops and beaches watching the sky. They didn't run. The Vanguard fleet moved out to meet them. Hundreds of human ships, built by the combined effort of every nation, took their positions. Alongside them, small alien crafts, piloted by the rescued refugees, joined the line. Together, they formed a defensive wall unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. When the Empire sent its first message, it was full of cold arrogance. "You defy the order of the stars. This is your last chance to surrender." Earth's reply came from the Vanguard flagship. "We don't bow to threats. You taught us fear once. Now we've learned courage." That was the moment the battle began. The Empire's weapons tore through the darkness, bright as lightning. The first explosions lit up the edges of the sky. Human ships fired back, their energy beams glowing like ribbons of gold. The reflector stations on Earth pulsed to life, bending enemy fire away and sending it spiraling harmlessly into space. The Empire's commanders were furious. They had expected an easy victory. Instead, their attacks were deflected, their formation breaking apart under human resistance. Then, a human pilot did something unexpected. His ship was badly damaged, and instead of retreating, he steered it straight toward one of the Empire's cruisers. The explosion that followed tore through the darkness like a sunrise. His bravery sparked others. Soon, more ships followed his example, striking not out of desperation but out of defiance. The battle raged for hours. The Empire's fleet was stronger, but the humans fought with something the Empire didn't understand: heart. Every soldier, every engineer, every citizen watching from the ground believed in what they were fighting for. In the middle of the chaos, one of the alien refugee ships managed to infiltrate the enemy's communication system. Using their own code, they sent a message to the Empire's other colonies across the galaxy. "Earth stands for freedom. You don't have to obey anymore." That message spread faster than light. Some Imperial ships hesitated. Some even broke formation and fled. The Empire's power was cracking, not because of weapons, but because its control was slipping. Finally, as the reflector network reached its full charge, a massive pulse of energy was unleashed. The wave stretched across space, bending the Empire's weapon fire back toward them. One by one, their ships began to fall. When the final explosion faded, the sky went silent. The stars returned, calm and distant, as if the universe itself had paused to watch. On Earth, no one moved for several seconds. Then the first cheer erupted. It grew louder, spreading from city to city, from mountaintop to desert. People hugged, cried, and shouted with joy. They had done it again. The Empire's fleet retreated, leaving behind only debris and silence. Earth had not only defended itself, but had inspired others across the stars. Within weeks, reports came from faraway systems: uprisings, rebellions, and colonies refusing to bow to the Empire. The balance of the galaxy was changing. In the following days, the World Council held a ceremony for those who had fallen in the battle. Their names were read aloud under a sky filled with lanterns. Each glowing light rose higher, carrying their memory into the heavens. The refugees, now safe and free, stood among the crowd, their eyes filled with emotion. One of them spoke softly. "Your people laughed in the face of fear. You gave us courage to do the same." That night, across the world, people didn't sleep. They watched the stars, knowing they were no longer just distant lights. They were destinations waiting to be reached. The Vanguard began plans for something new, a ship not meant for war, but for peace. A vessel that would carry the story of Earth to other worlds, not as conquerors, but as friends. The world had changed forever. Humanity was no longer the scared explorers who once stumbled into Empire space by accident. They were the spark that lit the galaxy, and though they knew more challenges would come, one thing was certain: whenever darkness rose again, Earth would not face it with fear. They would face it with the same thing that had carried them through every storm: hope, unity, and the quiet, fearless laughter that had become their greatest weapon. After the second great battle, when the last of the Empire's ships disappeared into the dark, Earth found itself standing at the edge of a new beginning. The world was bruised but alive, scarred yet shining. For the first time in recorded history, there was no war among nations, no arguments about who was right or wrong. Everyone had fought together side by side for something bigger than themselves. The weeks after victory felt almost unreal. Cities still carried the marks of fear, half-built shelters, old alarms that no one bothered to turn off anymore. But people were smiling again. They filled the streets not to protest or panic, but to celebrate. For the first time, laughter echoed freely under the same sky where alien fire had once fallen. Children drew pictures of human and alien hands joined together. Farmers sent food to rebuild the damaged regions. Musicians wrote songs about courage, and every melody carried the same message. We are stronger together. The world that once lived in fear had become a planet of hope. But deep inside the hearts of the leaders and scientists, there was one thought that refused to fade: what would come next? The Empire had retreated, but that didn't mean they were gone forever. The galaxy was vast, filled with other civilizations who were now watching Earth closely, some with admiration, others with fear. Inside the Vanguard headquarters, work never stopped. The engineers and scientists gathered every day, improving technology, building faster ships, and training new explorers. The next generation of humans wanted to go beyond defense. They wanted to understand the stars, not just fight under them. Among the refugees who had settled on Earth, some offered to help. They shared old maps of distant galaxies, stories of hidden worlds, and names of colonies that had once rebelled against the Empire. Each tale painted a clearer picture of how big and mysterious the universe truly was. The more humans learned, the more they realized how little they knew. There were planets covered in diamond storms, moons glowing with liquid light, and entire civilizations living inside clouds of gas. Yet, among all that beauty, there was also pain. Worlds crushed under the Empire's control, voices silenced for generations. The World Council met again. This time their goal wasn't survival, it was connection. They wanted to send out a message of peace to let others know that Earth was not their enemy. They called the project the Beacon of Unity. It began as a simple idea, a satellite larger than any before, built not for war but for communication. It would travel far beyond the solar system, carrying music, images, and messages from humanity and their new allies. Every culture on Earth contributed something: a poem, a song, a painting, a piece of language. Even the refugee aliens added their stories. When the beacon was finally completed, it floated above the planet like a glowing heart. It shimmered with light, powered by both human science and alien technology. On the day of its launch, billions of people tuned in to watch. As the beacon rose into the sky, a calm voice spoke across the global broadcast. We send this message not to conquer, but to connect. We are the people of Earth, and we wish for peace. To those who listen, may our laughter reach your world before our fear ever could. Those words became part of history. The beacon's light stretched across the stars, carrying human voices into the unknown. Months passed, and though there was no immediate reply, hope grew instead of fading. Children in schools began studying interstellar communication. Artists painted galaxies filled with color and kindness. People began to dream of journeys beyond their solar system, not as soldiers, but as explorers and friends. Still, Earth remained cautious. The Empire's silence lingered like a shadow behind a bright curtain. The Vanguard fleet stayed active, not for war, but for protection. Patrols moved quietly at the edge of human space, watching, listening. Then one day a signal returned. It came faintly at first, just a whisper through static. Scientists worked tirelessly to decode it. When the message finally cleared, the room fell silent. The translation was simple: "We heard your laughter." The message wasn't from the Empire. It was from another distant species, one that had also lived in fear of the Empire's rule. Their tone was filled with curiosity, even admiration. They wanted to meet, to learn, to share. The moment was celebrated worldwide. It proved that Earth's message had reached someone, that their courage had not gone unnoticed. Plans for a peaceful meeting began immediately. Months later, a sleek silver ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, carrying delegates from that distant civilization. When they stepped onto Earth's soil, people everywhere held their breath. They weren't enemies or conquerors, they were explorers too, carrying the same wish: peace. The first meeting was emotional. No one had imagined that laughter, a sound so simple, could become a bridge between worlds. Together they shared stories of survival, freedom, and hope. The alien visitors told humans that the Empire's power was crumbling from within. Many of its colonies were rebelling, inspired by what Earth had done. The galaxy was changing. Earth, once considered small and primitive, had become a symbol. a spark of courage in the dark. The Empire could no longer rule through fear because the one thing they couldn't destroy had spread across the stars: belief in freedom. As the years passed, humanity evolved even further. Space travel became part of everyday life. New settlements appeared on Mars, the Moon, and the orbiting colonies around Jupiter. The refugees helped build them, teaching humans how to survive beyond their home planet. Together they formed a council called the Circle of Worlds, made up of both humans and aliens. Their purpose was simple: to protect life, no matter where it came from. And though the Empire still existed in distant corners of the galaxy, its voice grew quieter with every passing year. More and more planets joined the Circle, leaving behind the old fear. Yet through it all, Earth never forgot where it began, not in victory, but in accident. The first human ship had stumbled into Empire space by mistake, and from that moment everything changed. What started as fear turned into discovery. What began as conflict became connection. Years later, when the story of Earth's journey was told to children across many worlds, it always began with the same line. Once upon a time, a small planet got lost among the stars and found itself facing an empire. Instead of bowing, its people laughed. That laughter became their strength. It echoed through history, a sound no weapon could silence. In the final years of the Empire's decline, their own historians began to record a strange truth. They wrote about humans not as enemies, but as the ones who changed the order of the galaxy. Some even claimed that Earth had taught them something their own civilization had forgotten: how to live with heart. Back on Earth, life continued. Generations passed, cities grew, and new technologies blossomed. The stars no longer seemed distant, they felt like neighbors. Every ship that left the planet carried a small symbol painted near its engines, a circle with a single bright dot in the center, representing Earth's light shining through darkness. At night, when people looked up, they didn't see the stars as cold or unreachable anymore. They saw stories, each one a reminder of what humanity had overcome. Old veterans of the vanguard sometimes gathered to share memories. They spoke of fear and bravery, of nights when the sky burned and mornings when peace returned. Their stories became part of Earth's legacy, told and retold until they became more than history. They became a promise that no matter how vast the universe grew, no matter how powerful others might seem, humanity would always hold on to the same simple truth. Courage doesn't come from strength. It comes from standing together, even when the odds are impossible. And so, as the beacon of unity continued to travel through the endless night, carrying laughter and light to new worlds, Earth stood quietly below, proud and unafraid. The Empire had fallen, the galaxy was awakening, and humanity's journey was only beginning. They had stumbled into Empire territory once by accident, but now they walked into the universe by choice, heads high, hearts open and smiles that could outshine any star.